to reach out to them. As always, give it up to the staff here. Our guy Ben over there for hosting us every single month. We didn't have Eric here today with this huge setup, but we managed to get things through and working. So big ups to Ben. Thank you very much, man. So with that being said, we're very excited to bring on our special guest this month. You guys have probably all heard of them if you listen to podcasts and you're looking to invest here in the Chicagoland area. We have Mark Ainley, who has owned and operated multifamily and a bunch of properties over here in the Chicagoland area over 2 decades now. He owns GC Realty and Development. He's a broker, he's an investor, he's a property manager. And we also have Tom Shallcross here, who over the past 2 years has owned and operated $30 million of real estate transactions. So we want to bring on your hosts of the Straight Up Chicago Investor podcast. Everybody give it up for Tom Shallcross and Mark Ainley. Next year will be 2 decades. So that's not, I like the whole almost 2 decades. It's much better. You want to round up? I can take this off, right? We're good? Yeah, you're good. I feel like I almost can't start to say, welcome to another show. I feel like that's my cue to actually start talking or listening. So, well, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for coming out today. Our goal here is to hopefully add some value. Who here is listening to the podcast? All right, thank you. I always like to ask that question. You're listening good. I always like to ask that question just to start off and say thank you very much for supporting us. It's you guys listening that motivates us to continue to do it. So. Listening to it, sharing it, promoting it within your circles, we greatly appreciate it. So, who here has bought a property before? Let's see your hands straight up so I can make sure. All right. So, knowing what you know right now, what's one piece of advice you would go back and give to yourself? So, hopefully this thing goes a little longer here. So, stand up and this is interactive here. Check your taxes. What do you mean by check your taxes? Well, if there's any homeowners that you are going to be surprised. All right, so you closed and your tax bill went up that first year, and you're like, oh damn, there goes my cash flow. What else? Who else we got?
Take action.
Take action. What does that mean?
Well, it means that there's no way you're going to learn every single thing that could possibly go wrong before you do it. Sometimes you just got to learn it as you go.
You learned a lot. I was part of that journey with you a little bit.
Yes, you were.
I know you learned a lot as you went. So we'll talk along those lines today. Who else? All right, understand your exit strategy. If you're flipping, if you can't flip it, what are you going to do? If the rent's you're going to get, what are you going to do? How you going to get out? I love it. One more. Have a buying strategy. Elaborate. Okay. So knowing what your actual goal is, what your sweet spot might be, or at least having some direction. So I appreciate that one as well too.
Buy early and buy often.
I like that one. All right, so for those who've listened to the podcast, at the end we asked what's the one piece of advice you would tell someone that has yet to buy their first property here in Chicago. Okay. Now we've had over 100 people give answers, and these are people who are killing it. I don't know if some of these recent episodes, these are people who are just absolutely destroying it. If we were smart and more an entrepreneur, we'd write a book with just all these comments and make money off everyone else's comments. For the sake, so we've dissected this over the last couple months, and all the answers we've gotten kind of fall into 4 different buckets. And those buckets are, call it, due diligence. So these are people who say, hey, know your taxes, know your buying strategy. Chicago's block by block, know your neighborhood, etc. Take action. You've heard a lot of our guests say, hey, just go. Get in. You can't learn to ride a bicycle at a conference. Third one is mindset or vision. So this is, real estate is mindset. This is more of the intangible. This is more practical advice. Really, can be spread across a lot of things besides real estate. And the last one we kind of grouped together was, call it, networking or team. Find a team, find a mentor, find a coach. Surround yourself with the right people. Go to networking events like this. So out of the 100-something answers, they all fall in those 4 different categories. For the sake of time today, Mark and I are going to talk about due diligence and taking action, because those two came up the most out of all of them. And at the surface level, they seem to be exact opposites of each other, right? Hey, do your homework, shut up and jump in, right? I can understand how they can be confusing, but what we're going to talk about today is kind of how due diligence is almost a prereq that enables you to take action. So I'm going to talk about due diligence, and I'll turn it over to Mark to talk about taking action. So another quick poll here on the due diligence side. Who here, an honest assessment for everyone here, this is more like a personality question, but who here, if you're going to go buy a car, is the person who looks 6 months in advance and does all the reviews, talks to 20 friends, and analyzes the crap out of it? There's a couple of you in the crowd here. All right. And who is on the exact opposite end of the spectrum who says, honey, I'm going to the dealer, I'll see you in an hour. All right, and everyone else, you fall probably somewhere in that middle there of those two extremes I just mentioned, right? So I bring that up because when I was telling my wife, hey, I got to ditch you on Sunday, Mark and I got to go present. And she said, oh, what are you talking about? And I explained, I said, I'm going to do the due diligence side. And she said, she kind of scoffed at me, kind of laughed. Because she knows me from, just constantly making these kind of crazy offers, leaving my job. And just, in her eyes, this is someone who takes 6 weeks to pick out couch cushions. So in her eyes, I'm crazy. But what you don't see there is all the work that happens to get to that point, right? The reason you're able to do things like that is because of the preparation, because of that due diligence, right? When you prepare, you have clarity and you have confidence, an earned confidence. It's not a bravado like, hey, I'm the best in the room. It's from putting the reps in, you have that confidence. And then once you have that, it puts you in a position where you can act from a point of confidence and you can be strong in actually taking action, right? And Mark will talk about that in a second here. But I'm going to put this in an example. I was trying to think of like making this tangible instead of me rambling. And here's, I think, a good example. So let's say you came to me and said, Tom, I got a 10-unit building in Portage Park, $100,000 a door. I don't care if Russia's invading that building. I don't care if it's falling over. I can make money on that building. I don't care about the bed bath count. Like, I will make money on that building with the information you just gave me. And right, I'm not reckless. I'll put a plan together. We'll have a business plan. We'll figure out the rehab. We'll figure out all those things. But I know right there that is a deal. Now, let's say you came to me and said, Tom, I got a 10-unit building, $100,000 a door in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I have no clue if that's a deal. I don't know the submarkets there. I don't know tenant expectations. I don't have a team. Even if I knew that stuff, I don't have a team up there that can execute. I'm a half step ahead of my 9-year-old in that analysis. I know nothing. So you just asked me like the same question, 10-unit building here, 10-unit building here. And one, I'm acting from a stance of confidence and borderline arrogance of we can make this happen. And the other, I'm clueless. And the only thing that has changed was the due diligence I have in one area versus not in the other, right? The question is pretty much the same, just what I know and my understanding and in my baseline is what has changed, right? When you guys first started this event, I remember we did, I came on and talked about underwriting, establishing a baseline, right? For those of you who are just looking to buy a property, like I think the most important question, and this, we had guests say like similar things over and over. The one we're going through the list, Anthony Citrelli, and I'm butchered the last name, but from Essex, he said, you got to know what you're going to say yes to. If you can't answer that question, you will never buy anything. If you don't understand what you will say yes to, you'll never buy anything. And you can't do that without that upfront due diligence, right? And that answer also can't be, I want a cash flowing property in a good neighborhood. That is a terrible answer, right? You need something specific there, right? We've had a lot of guests too. So on the due diligence side, I'm talking real like tactical level here. So establishing a baseline, doing your homework, understanding it. And then we've had a lot of guests also then on more of, I'll take it a step back, just understanding where do you want to be, right? So we're all here, we're all at A trying to get to B. And some of us are, just starting, some of us are here, but no one here feels they peaked and they don't want to get any better, right? Everyone here is trying to get to another level. And you can't do that if you don't know what B is, right? If you're going from A to B, you don't know what B is, one, you'll never get there. And two, the second you get knocked off your horse, you ain't gonna get back up, right? If you don't have that clarity and that true vision of where you want to go. And that's some of the things we've heard over and over from guests, like begin with the end in mind and know where you want to be. I think the other things we've heard from them too is, they haven't said this explicitly, but my interpretation of it is, it's also that end goal is contextual. When you're doing this upfront work and this due diligence, you need to know what you want. It doesn't matter if someone else is doing 2,000 units. Like if you just want to get that 3-unit house hack under your belt, cool. Like that is the focus for right now, and update the goal from there. Almost all the people we've talked to that have done the David Greens of the world, the people have done just a ton. A lot of things they said is the next step, right? Like the Gary Keller quote, I'm going to butcher, Mark, you can help me, but the secret to getting ahead is getting started. The secret to getting started is taking a complex task and breaking it down into smaller pieces, right? It's just, if you can do all that work up front, it enables you to take action, right? Because Mark will talk about this, but like when you take action, you're going to get kicked in the teeth. It will happen to you. If you don't have that clear vision of where you want to go, you're going to give up on it. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark to talk about taking action. I think the one thing I want to just emphasize here is, what I'm saying is not an excuse to just bury your head in spreadsheets for 6 months and not do anything, right? That is not what I'm saying. Is like, oh yeah, do all this work, and then come up for air and say, I'm ready to buy a property. What I'm saying though is you have to do those necessary reps so you can start getting to the next level. It's a pre-run. It is something that has to happen, but it's not an excuse for not taking action.
One thing I want to add here is, the question is, one thing for if you've never purchased property. I think for me personally, where I got my teeth kicked in was when I started going down the line and getting confident. Cocky maybe is more the right word there, but I think you get a few properties under your belt, you might even have a couple big hits or a couple really like slam dunk cash out 110% out refis, and all of a sudden you think you know what you're doing, and then that's where you mess up, and that's where you get whacked.
My worst deals have been the deals after the home.
Yes, exactly. You let your guard down. So all of this advice, even though we put it in the context of if you've never done a deal before, it has to be reiterated throughout your journey. It has to be reiterated deal number 40, deal number 50, because I've made my biggest mistakes down that line, deal 120, whatever it might be. So keep those things in mind. The most accomplishments I've ever made were ones I was not ready for. John Maxwell. Anyone read any books on John Maxwell? Or by John Maxwell? So anybody is wanting to be a better person, a better parent, a better leader in your job, John Maxwell, he's got a plethora of books, but he's a great thought leader in the whole leadership realm. So check him out. But that was his quote. The whole take action buckets. Breaking that down really 4 ways. General take action. That's just kind of like just being able to do it. Just almost the confidence that I'm ready to take action and do something. So you have to almost tell yourself that, right? You almost have to tell yourself, now that I know what I'm looking for, my next step is to, when I see that property come across, doing it. Tangible next steps. So there's tangible next steps. And that might just be as simple as you might do. I talk to people all the time where they have been doing their research, they've been doing their spreadsheets, they've been analyzing deals, and they don't have a real estate agent yet. They've never even talked to a real estate agent. So have those things set up. Have that real search with that real broker, if you're not a broker yourself, ready to go. Or if you are a broker yourself, and have that contract ready to go that you know how it's going to flow. Those are your tangible next steps. Avoiding paralysis. That's the third bucket that falls into. Paralysis comes in the beginning when you're just really scared and not comfortable, but paralysis also comes later on in the journey as well too, where you get busy. So, in the last 5-6 years, I've talked to a lot of people that have built a nice portfolio, 10, 12, 14, 30 units. Now all of a sudden they have 3 kids and they have a whole bunch of stuff going on where just the paralysis of them getting, they're nervous again because they feel like they almost lost something and they're putting off now. Now they just have to spend a little time and kind of getting comfortable with taking action again and starting back in the beginning of that first bucket. The other part is be patient. So you got a lot of cowboys that they think that they have everything ready to go and they're not patient enough. So I was going to give an example here of something I'm working on right now. We've wanted to buy a property. Our office in Roselle, and we wanted to buy a property near Roselle. It was walking distance to the office. So we have on our team, we have a bunch of remote workers in Mexico, the Philippines, and we want to start bringing them into Chicago. And we have consultants that come in that work with us, and different coaching type people that come into town. And we're always paying for their hotels. So I'm like, let's buy a house that's in walking distance, so we don't have to get them a rental car. We don't have to go pick them up. We don't have to pay for their hotel tabs. And then in between, I want to learn everything about short-term rentals. So I'll do that. So I've been wanting to do this for years. And the funny thing is, one of those tangible next steps is me just send up a damn search. I literally have an office full of 30 brokers. I'm a broker myself. I'm in the MLS every day, but I never started set up that 0.2-mile search around the office. That was a big next step for me because I looked at it, but then the other part is be patient. I wasn't seeing what I wanted like the first 4 days. And I'm like, should I switch to a townhouse? Should if people come to town, maybe a mile and a half, that's not that bad to walk. I was expanding out the search. I was thinking about Chicago winters, but I was impatient at first. Like, I got to go and I want to go. So then, but in being patient, property came up Friday night, and I saw it on my search. It came up Friday night, and within a half hour, I sent over an offer and got accepted. So, but I knew right away. And some of the before steps I had to do is tell my partners, hey, we're buying a property, we're spending your money. This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And so it wasn't, I found a great property, now I got to go talk to my partners. It wasn't, I found a great property, I'm not sure how I'm going to finance it. I was ready to pull the trigger on all those things, and we ultimately have a property under contract now. Any of those things resonate with anybody? I mean, is this in your journeys, like, are these things you guys experienced? So one day you're eager to go, the next day you're scared to go. Like these are normal emotions that investors always have, and sometimes it's a roller coaster day by day almost. Discomfort. All of this. I always say if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. Now, when the market gets hot, everyone tries to do it, or a lot of people try to do it. And when it's really easy to do it, it also becomes dangerous for people that don't know what they're doing. But discomfort. So, if you're buying your first 3 flat, if you're buying your first house hack, if now you've lived in one, and now you're going to buy a true investment and you're not going to be on site to manage it anymore, those are all levels of discomfort. Those are all levels of you feel that little feeling in your stomach. I almost said tummy. I have kids when I have tummy. I say tummy. But those are all feelings that are normal. If you don't feel those, maybe you might be a little nervous. And if you feel too much and it's holding you back, maybe you have to kind of start back with what Tom was talking about.
So, we can talk about this a lot and break down every answer, but at the heart, like, we wanted to spend a little time talking about the due diligence and taking action. Because one, it's out of the 130 some guests, it was probably like 80 of the answers, right? It's coming up from the people who are doing it over and over again. And hopefully it resonates with people in this room, because some of you are probably, analysis paralysis right now, or even if you have 30 units, 40 units, whatever it is, something is stopping you from doubling, right? This isn't just for the guy buying his first property. So we kept it intentionally short here. I want to turn it over to you guys though. What, out of things we're talking about here, what questions do you have? What is stopping you from getting to the next level that we could potentially provide any insights from the guests we've had on the show? That is a loaded question.
So in order to scale, I don't know, I'm still beginning, so I kind of want to understand everything. How do you get from the stage of like, I need to know everything to, I need to start trusting my people and go to who, not how? How do you step up to that?
So for those online, the question was, how do you balance starting and then scaling and almost offsetting the who, not how mentality of getting into other people and just trusting them and having this be a systematic machine? My answer is you just F it up a few times so you get it right.
Well, I think no matter what, this is your dream, this is your journey, this is your goals. You have to be in control of that part, and the delegation to that team. You're going to build rapport and trust and all that stuff, but you almost have to still know everything that's going on within what you're delegating. So I think no matter what, you have to be the captain of that ship. And delegation, whether it be to a property manager or attorney for certain parts of it, or your brokers that are out looking for you, or your assistants that you have finding off-market properties. I think no matter what, you have to be steering that ship no matter what. It takes less time than doing it yourself, but make sure you're in control of which way that ship is going is the most important part.
Do you suggest people to self-manage their properties in their house taxes, or to get a property manager?
I'm a property manager, but I always say manage your own properties if you can. I think the experience you get for a couple different reasons. One, I think there's some humbling to it. You learn what to expect and when you do outsource a property manager to find a property manager, you know what to expect, or you actually know what you're paying for, or you know what time you're getting back for in exchange for that fee. So in our property management, a lot of times I tell people, yes, there's a lot of stuff you can probably do better than me. You're living on site, or you were living on site, and walk outside and do this and make sure the garbage is picked up every single day. Now you're not going to be there, but the time all that took, some of that stuff is what you're buying back ultimately. What are you getting when you pay that fee? But the self-management part, there's a lot, and maybe I'll share it with you and can add it somewhere that this goes. But I have a whole bunch of really self-managing tips that are really good. Now, the number one tip about the whole self-managing thing is don't tell me the owner. So when you have a two-flat, you can always, I was talking to somebody yesterday, I said, you could always be the nephew of the guy that owns the building. That way you're just kind of an intermediary. Your uncle he's doing everything around the house or around the building for him, but any decision you're making, you're not gonna check from uncle. So that's a good thing about having a property manager and it's a good thing about tenants not knowing the owner is the ability to kind of play the middle. And you can show empathy, like, I'd love to fix that or put up a brand new privacy fence out there, but the owner just, he said maybe next year. I don't know, but I agree. I want that too. And then now they think you're on your side, and then ultimately, because I think when you're a landlord or when you're living in the building, you got to be seen, and you gotta. I don't know. You feel like there's relationship there. You feel like you owe them something, or sometimes they feel that you owe them something. So. Just kind of having that as a strategy. I have a whole bunch of other stuff too that I share as well, but that's the main one. Like, if you're living there, it's hard though sometimes when you're walking up there for the inspection. It's a pride of ownership for your first feeling. I own this building. I'll be your landlord. And that feeling goes away quick. That first 2 in the morning, knock on the door that your hot water's not working. So. All right, the question was, if you want to double your portfolio, how do you find the capital or the ability to finance that?
I would take that a step back and say, like, is that really the problem right now? Right? Because the problem right now for, I'd say, almost everyone in this room is deal flow, for at least for most people. Like, if you have too many deals coming in and finance is the issue, then yes, let's focus on this question. But I think, is that even an issue right now? And is deal flow the issue? Every time a lot of things just come back to deal flow, I feel, right? So just taking a step back. But then to directly answer the question, if you have any sort of track record, like if you've done a couple deals, there is money out there. There's absolutely money out there. Whether it be private capital, whether lenders, acquisition lenders, there is deals, there is money out there. Still, I know rates are going up, still very relatively cheap. Right, like that is something. If put it, I remember when I first had to go start finding money when I was kind of running on my own, and I forgot who told this. I read it in a book or who told it to me. It's not mine, so I'm not taking credit for it. But they said, hey, you need to find that money by Friday, or act like they're going to kill your family. You will find the $100 grand you need, right? If you just start putting yourself out there and asking, and all of a sudden change your mindset that I got to find this or else, right? We're all in like a very passive situation right now. But if you need to go get it, it is out there. You can go find it.
There's more money in my almost decade experience. There's more money out there right now than there's ever been. Even that 2005, 6, 7 big bubble that we got into, money was freer and easier to get in a different way. But it's, I mean, as far as on the investment side, the rehab side, it's way easier now than ever.
Are you talking on like the private side or more like banks?
Well, I think the one thing that's popped up in the, in the last 5 years is all of these, I don't know what you call them, I call them mid-level lenders. They're not Johnny on the corner charging juice, but they're not conventional, but they're the Renovos of the world. And the CIC is a traditional lender, and they are more considered conventional, but yes. So those guys are out there, and here's the thing, they have a lot of money because they're all backed mostly by insurance companies, and insurance companies have a lot of money to be investing right now, and they need to find deals. They need guys like you to put money into. Don't get me wrong, they do their due diligence. They want to make sure you're working with, Renovo is very relationship based. I'm not trying to pitch them right now, but I do recommend them. But they're very, if they know you're working with a good contractor, and they know you're working with a good property manager, and they know that you manage the property for a little bit yourself, man, it's all in. Like they'll lend you the money. So the money is definitely there. Now, down payments, stuff like that. I mean, those are the short-term private monies you come up with, or we had the recent episode about the borrow against your IRA or the 401k. Like those are big options that are out there right now for a lot of people. So.
For someone who is highly leveraged, more than 90% loan to value, but still good cash flow, heading into an uncertain market with rising rates, perhaps a normalization in appreciation, how do you determine a good amount of cash reserves before buying more property?
Well, if the property's cash flows and the loan to value right now, so one thing I learned in the downturn was if you cash flowed, it didn't really matter. You just had to wait it out. Now, where that becomes an issue is if anything happens with that value and they have to exit, or if they have to refinance. I watch a lot of commercial guys go under because the banks that they had loans at were unable to, at the end of their 5-year balloon, unable to re-up it, or they were asking for considerable amounts of additional money down to make up for that gap of not having. So, the latter part of that question is how much reserve-wise. I don't know what you tell people, but as far as having, if you have a 3 or 4 month worth of reserves in case you have a long turnover or something like that, or a tenant that goes in eviction, I think that's always something you should have per property. As far as and it's very conservative. I bet you a lot of people don't have that, but if people are asking for advice, that's what I recommend.
I would just add it's contextual, right? If you're making some 6 figures and this is your one property, you got a lot of leg room to play with. If you quit your job and burn the bridge, it's a little different, right? Like you have to be more conservative there than if this is just one other investment in the overall portfolio that you have. Edgar. That's a good question, and I'm someone who has my hands in a lot of things, so I should probably be asking myself the same. So for those online, the question was, I'll paraphrase, but there's a lot of ways to make money in real estate. There's a lot of different strategies. What are good questions you should be asking yourself to figure out what is my niche? What do I do? You're chomping.
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing I learned over there is what do you like to do? What part of it do you like? There's people out there that just love to find deals, and that even breaks out that they love to find deals that they can flip, or they love to find deals that they can hold. And we were talking about it in the show the other day about flipping is Casman, I think it was with flipping is a full-time job. You can speak to that part here in a second, but that's a full-time job, and long-term rentals, that's a different type of strategy it's a lot slower pace. People that want excitement and want to find the excitement of the deal that might not work for them. So it is really what you're comfortable with and what it will go back to your way that you're getting capital and how you're going to plan out for that. But that is a lot about your comfort level of where you want to go. Now, don't get me wrong, start with end of mind and backing into that, right? So if you are looking to just buy a few deals a year, but you have this big BHAG of where you want to be, then obviously you're going to have to revisit that approach and try to approach it different ways.
I was gonna say, begin with the end in mind, like, right, is this feeding the overall end goal? That's probably the biggest thing. And whatever it is, if you can't decide, take one and just run with it for a year. Give yourself 365 days to say, I'm gonna do this. And it's all I'm gonna do. And it might have been the wrong choice, but just I'd stick to it for a year. Don't give up after like 2 months and then move on to the next thing and try something. Like, it's the same as marketing, right? Just give it a finite timeline to go all in, instead of saying like, oh, I'll try this, then try this. Like, at least you've set some sort of direction. And if it's wrong, not the end of the world, right? You could always pivot from there. What else?
Alex is asking, do you have any favorite books or resources to recommend?
Is it Ferrero? I'm not answering.
Yeah, it is Ferrero.
The Road Less Stupid, Mark got me onto that one. That book is just fantastic, and you can go through it 1,000 times. It's the end of each chapter, it asks those questions. Similar to Edgar just saying, what are some questions I should ask? You know, it asks, at the end of every chapter has those questions that you can literally wake up every morning and ask yourself and start to see the world a little bit differently. So that one's been huge. I won't steal any of Mark's. He's looking them up all right
I
now.
just want to make sure I get the right name. I gave,
Real quick before I hand it over. we chat when we do the podcast, so it's my one thing with reading books is I read the same 10 books over and over and over again. I don't read like 80 books. Like, I don't go find the next one. I think if you just do what they say to do and Think and Grow Rich, you will be rich. Like, it's that simple. Like, so just read the book every quarter and start implementing that in your life. There's no other like secret answer out there. So I'm a big fan of just like going deep into like 4 or 5 really good books.
well, that's perfect. I think the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So one thing that I used to struggle with books, because I used to like if I was driving, like I used to like, oh my gosh, I missed those last 3 minutes or whatever. And I realized when I came to the conclusion that out of every book, there's probably 2 or 3 really good things you take from every single book. Now I believe in, for me, books, the whole concept of you're the average of your 5 people you're around the most. I take that approach with books. So the books that I'm reading, I become kind of that mindset of that average. So Gap and Gain, that's a good book that kind of is along the lines of what we're talking about here today. Gap and Gain, The Gap and Gain. It's another book from Dan Sullivan that came after Who Not How, but really it talks about you are in your best self when you're confident about where you're at today. So a lot of people, you might leave an event today and like, oh man, I wish I had 3 more buildings, or that's the worst place to be trying to grow your business from or grow your portfolio from. It's hey, wow, look where I came from. Look back, see where I came from. Look at where I'm at today. Maybe you're behind, maybe you're ahead, but now it's like that gives you the power to really look forward to what you want to do next. So great book in that sense. I just read it, my first fiction. I always have my first fiction book that I've read in a while, but it was called The Midnight Library. Now it was really good. It's more of a fable, but it talks about really the different directions, much deeper than a real estate book, but it really talks about the different directions and all the little decisions that we make on a daily basis, how it can take you somewhere totally different. So I thought that was a good one.
You read or audible?
Oh, Audible. I struggle to sit down and read. I fall asleep right away. If I sit down ever, usually I fall asleep. My wife's like, you were just talking 2 seconds ago. Like, I'm sleeping.
Do you listen to the car or at home when you're like bored?
Well, it's everywhere. I think the good thing about earbuds, you're picking up poop in the yard for the dog. Like, I mean, I literally, whatever it might be, I have the earbuds in and I'm listening to something usually.
About time management. So, all of us have the same 24 hours in a day. Some people may still be in their W-2s, working 40 to 80 hours. Some people have children. Just recently, you just did your W-2. You have 4 kids, you're working a W-2 job, you're doing all this real estate stuff. What kind of systems or time management strategies would you advise who want to get into this, but feel like they don't have time necessarily?
So you have, so time management is the question for anyone listening online. What is the best strategies, I'll paraphrase it, as far as time management and just trying to accomplish everything you want to accomplish? I think, Good Habits, Atomic Habits, it's another good book. Anyone who hasn't read, that's a great book. But there's a lot of time management habits you can have on a daily basis. I think you have to, what I always think about when I think about, like, how did I get this stuff done this week? Or how am I ever going to get, like, when I think of those things, I think about that, I think about some of these bigger people that accomplish a lot in a short amount of time. They found a way to get those things done. It wasn't because they had more time than us, like you said, and they just did things differently. And if you're moving too slow or you're not able to get things done, or you think your W-2 job's getting in the way, you just got to think of it the other way. How else can I do this? Or who else can help me with this? Or, who else can help me bird dog? Or, the cool thing about real estate is everyone is willing to jump in. I think the whole mentor or just being part of something, there's probably 10,000 20-year-olds in this Chicago community that would be happy to be part of some team and bring it on. Now, you say how to find them, that's another conversation. But it's just, if you're going to go back to the end of mine, which I feel bad, keep going back to that, you have to back in. Like, I got to get all this stuff accomplished. And then how do I get this stuff accomplished in this next year? How do I get it done in this next quarter? How do I get it done this next month? You almost have to just back into what you really want to accomplish, because you'll find a way to get it all done no matter what.
No, same answer. I think the only thing I'd add is, like, I go back to Gary Keller's the one thing. What is the one thing you can do right now that by doing it would make everything in your life easier? Like right now, if you're looking to house hack a 3-unit, you should be doing nothing else but that, right? Don't worry about the bigger pockets post. Don't worry about like getting business cards. Like, just go find a 3-unit. Don't do anything else. Just go get the 3-unit, and everything else will fall into place, right? Like, it's. I have the microphone. Like, it's prioritizing. Just like, it sounds so simple, but like, I know I do that all the time, right? Like, is this the main thing? The one thing I need to get done this week that's going to make my life easier. That happens. Everything else you fit into the schedule, but that has to happen.
So think about this in your daily work life. You have, or back in your school, like, you had to get something done by a certain deadline, and you found a way, or you only had an hour right now to get these 3 things done before you did. Now, those 3 things are the most important things going for you in that moment. You get them done, you find a way. It's too easy to, this life is so damn distracting these days between social media, just email in general, just like to be email doing stuff that's worthless. It's a horrible thing. You almost have to learn how to best practices with that. But like you said, if you had 6 hours this week to find that 3 flat, you should be spending 6 hours finding that 3 flat, or doing whatever you have to do to find that 3 flat. You shouldn't say again, you shouldn't spend 2 hours listening to Bigger Pockets podcast, only listen to our podcast. You shouldn't be doing other things that are going to get in the way. You're here. If you look at that 3 flat, you should be, everyone you talk to should be asking, anybody that's on a 3 flat. Like, you just have to kind of buckle down and focus on what that next step is that's going to help you keep going. I just repeated what you said. We're on the same page with some things. Right?
Question may seem a little naive, but time pressure. How would you say starting off?
Can I take this one? Cool. All right. So one thing that I think is very important for anyone investing in real estate here is there's multiple ways you're making money. If you're only looking at this from a cash flow perspective, that's wrong. And let me say one more thing. I think the cap rates are not bad here at all compared to the rest of the country. So you're not going to, short of going to a Midwest tertiary market, like, you're not going to find much better here than here. So cash flow, yes, that's one way. But you also, the whole hedge against inflation right now, it's a whole big conversation about protecting your cash and not having it in the bank. The tax advantages. So, if you don't have a good CPA, gotta talk to your CPA about what that really looks like. Has anyone ever really, I know we got CPA over here in the crowd, yeah, go corner him after we're done. But all of the different things that you are making up, especially if you have a W-2 job, all that stuff you're working against, that income you have there as a real estate owner, is huge. And then you also have the whole, you get appreciation, you get that as well too. And then education was a good one. What's that? Oh, yeah, yes, exactly. Thank you. So then you're paying down your loan. So even if you are, and I'm not saying this is the strategy, but even if you are break even, you're still making money on that thing on a monthly basis and growing your wealth. Because you have that appreciation paid out. You have that, generally it should go up. If you're holding it long term, if you're holding it a year or two, you could get stuck in some sort of cycle where you might lose money on paper in that time. But if you're holding this thing for 10, 20 years, then you're good as far as appreciation goes. But having cash into it and then the whole tax advantage, it's huge.
Yeah, I'll just add, like, if you're looking at other markets outside of Chicago, what is your competitive advantage there? Right? Like, and maybe you have one, right? Like, maybe you have a relative, or maybe you can go there easily, whatever it is. But like, whether you invest here or somewhere else, like, what is the competitive advantage? 'Cause at the end of the day, if cap rates are higher, lower, whatever, the market kind of equalizes that, right? Everyone talks about like how hot Florida is. There's a trillion people buying there, right? And then if you went to some city in Iowa where no one lives, there's no one buying, right? The market equalizes for the most part demand. So I guess my point is, like, where are you going to have that competitive advantage? So if you're saying like, I can go to, Northwest Indiana because it's an hour drive for me, it's not that bad. I already know people out there killing it. Cool. But if you're just looking at it because it's on a spreadsheet and it looks sexier, that's a different strategy. I think people get too stuck into it and then they actually start down the path and they go, I don't know anyone out there. I don't have contractors. This is going to be a disaster. And I did that. My first property I bought outside of here was in Milwaukee. I had 6, 8 units in Milwaukee thinking I was going to kill it up there, right? I did not have a team up there. Things were fine, but like there was no way I was going to get to 100 units there without like relocating the family. Like, and if I was a single dude, I probably could have done it. But like, so there was no, it was sexy on a spreadsheet, but it didn't, you have to be able to then execute the plan. So I'm not trying to sell Chicago, but I'm selling, like, everyone always thinks the grass is greener on the other side. It's tough. If you have those things in place, great. But a lot of us don't.
I'll add I did the same thing. After 140 units, I went to Milwaukee, and then I went down to Florida. Not having the network or I got a guy concept for everything, and I paid for it in different ways. So, and going to Milwaukee made me appreciate our architecture we have here. You don't have you don't buy as pretty of buildings anywhere else in this country as you can here. One more thing I'll add to that is, you said competitive advantage, and that's huge. And I'm going to say it and answer that in a different way. You have, there's not a week that goes by I don't talk to 7 or 8 investors that are either looking to buy here from California, East Coast or West Coast, or they are already here and they're having some sort of problem and they want me to give them advice on how to help them out. Those people usually end up gravitating towards the south side, south suburbs, mostly because of sexy cap rates on paper that they bought and they're sold some rehab turnkey type concept. But those people hardly ever end up in the pockets in the Northwest side or the suburbs or a nice C-class community like Berwyn or Glendale Heights out west, because they don't know. They don't know that stuff. And the competitive advantage of those people that they lack is huge. Every so often I'll get a guy that will call me and want to buy like a turn one of our kind of rehab rented out properties in the south. Like, man, you're local, man. Like, you don't have to buy that. Like, you're in Aurora, man. You have like all the C-class world like cash flow properties that you can have over there. Like, I'm not gonna let you buy that. So we have a very, Chicago is very special in a few different ways. So many different neighborhoods, so many different laws, rules, compliance codes, all that type of stuff. And it's pretty cool in the sense of we have always have a moat around it, that people come in and they get invest money here. They never really make it. They don't stick around too often. A lot of people from out of state, they're here 3-5 years, they bought that cap rate and they usually are out. And it's people that are local that truly have that competitive advantage. Well, I'll introduce you to about 43 people here after the show. But it's right here. So your competitive advantage here is that you're here. You're- Yeah, our podcast. I'll do a pitch there. But the podcast, our podcast was one of the goals of it is to give somebody a crash course of investing here in Chicago and all the different areas it has to offer. You're here, you're able to literally every weekend, your 4 or 6 hours you have free on your weekend. That's literally the time you're going to spend driving to different neighborhoods or what you think you like and learning those things or showing up at these events. So that is, it's these events, it's our podcast, it's the ability to be walking down the streets every single day. This is what your advantage is.
I have a question on mine. John Stewart says, I'm a fan of the podcast and I always hear you guys ask your guests neighborhoods where they're bullish in for the next 3 to 5 years. What are yours?
I'm still very bullish on the northwest side. Now I'm a complete homer. I'm completely biased and born and raised, so like take it with a grain of salt. But I still think take a look if you're in like call it the Belmont Blue Line area. Take a look at everything that's happened going towards O'Hare, and then when you get past that, you have Irving, you have Jeff, you have Norwood Park, Edison Park, neighborhoods that have been stable for 30 years, and you're compressing from both sides there. I'm still very bullish on what I call the Avondale adjacent. Going over like call it west of Pulaski, we're spending a lot of marketing dollars there. We feel very strongly about that. The housing inventory is the same as Avondale. The current people there is the same. There are people who have owned there for 20 years and kept the properties in decent condition. So I am very bullish there. In general, Mark and I are probably both more bullish on Chicago than a lot of people in this room. Right, when you start talking to people on a national level, instead of just all the crap you can say about taxes, blah, 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 and all this, we're losing people. Ask someone who bought in Avondale 20 years ago, how are they doing? And ask Luke Blahnik what his net worth is from buying in Logan 10 years ago. Like, you can make a lot of money here. And there's still a ton of opportunity in a lot of these subsectors. And I can rant on this for a long time, so I'll hand it off.
Well, the one good thing we all have going here is rents are going up these last couple of years, and really it's been a lot bigger of a conversation this year so far. But I think areas that have lower rents, and I've always thought Rogers Park, Avondale, Uptown, I think those areas have always been under market for property values and rents based on just what it has to offer as a neighborhoods. So I've always been a big fan of those areas. Now, there's a lot more condos in those areas than there's single family, so maybe supply makes it more tougher to get into, but there's tons of multi-units out there as an option. Now, I think on the southwest side, going down Archer Avenue, straight out, I think is any of those little pockets out there, McKinley Park and so forth. There's opportunity price-wise at the right price point, and rents are going up, which make them even better. On the suburb side, I'm a big fan of DuPage County, just getting out of DuPage and Kane County, just getting out of any of the regulatory areas. Now, DuPage County has no ordinance. They have no, it's a free-for-all out there. Kane County, most of Kane County doesn't even have any rental license program, so it's really nice. Now your taxes get higher, but I think those are kind of the kind of areas I like.
For rent increases this year, I've had turnover, but I've had nobody not pay. So this is the first year that I've actually not paid. With inflation, how are you handling rent? Without stressing out.
Well, I think a lot of that comes down to the relationship you have with your tenant. I think it's important for you to back into how much a turnover is going to cost you. I think if your place is pretty turnkey and the tenant's good, then you can turn it over pretty quick, or you can rent it out. Have someone move in a few days later. There's less risk there, but maybe that was the one unit you didn't update.
Yeah.
And that unit's going to take time and so forth, where just bumping up the rent 5% versus maybe the 10% should be there, maybe 15%. You have to it's a case-by-case strategy there. But I think it's a lot easier to push a rent increase down somebody's budget if you have a relationship with them and you're able to explain to them. I think where a lot of people go wrong is it's just like, you don't hear from them all year, then all of a sudden you get $300 bump. So it's getting on the phone with them and especially for your self-management memos, if you're on the property and talking to them, you can point out what you've done to the place, you know, you improved this, you updated this. Hey, you know, next year I'm gonna put that new sidewalk in. I know it's all wet there. Whatever, you just kind of talk to them about where that's going to. It's a lot easier when you're able to see what you get for the money or where you're now getting for the money. Now, it's important too, I think, at a lower level, if you get to them earlier. Now, there's different laws, you have to do stuff in advance here in Chicago, make sure you know those. But let them know it's coming too, so they can kind of prepare. Like, hey, I know you might be looking, but now when they go looking, they'll start seeing how heavy things are. And you might even, in your conversation, say, listen, I'm only going 1,600 here, but pretty much everywhere else in the neighborhood is going to put about 1,750, 1,800. Go check it out. And let them almost see that you're getting a good deal too.
If you're providing the value, they'll take, if you're providing the value, they'll take the increase, right? If you're in line with that's where the market's at, you should not be scared to have that conversation.
Let's take the money.
Hell wants to ask, should you have an LLC?
Attorney Shallcross, you want to answer that one? Well, listen, I'll ask this from, there's pros and cons, right? I think you talk to your attorney, they're gonna tell you it's the best thing you do to cover yourself. If you have one property, I'm talking to an investor right now, this is not legal advice, but if you have one property and you're questioning, should I have it in there, then it ends up being, what else do you have at risk? You know, sometimes a good umbrella policy will help capture any additional risk for any kind of worst case scenario tragedy. That's really why you have it in there. That's the gas leak on the block. It blows everything up and multiple people die. That's why you put it in LLC. That's why you try to protect yourself. But you know the few $100,000 or the $1 million coverage you might have on your homeowner's insurance or your landlord policy. Then you put another, usually an umbrella policy is usually about $600 every $1 million you have out there. So maybe that's just easier. With an LLC, you do have to deed it over. You do have to file another tax return. So those are those things that start adding up. But if you have 3 or 4 properties, then it might make sense just to kind of keep it and put it over there. And obviously your cost to file that entity will go up a little, but now you can spread it across 3 or 4 different ones. Now, to start an LLC is much cheaper than it was 10 years ago. So those costs have gone down, and the renewal on an annual basis, and even the penalty for forgetting to renew it has gone down. So it is less expensive to actually do it these days. But I always tell people there's 2 things: talk to your CPA, kind of let them tell you what it's going to cost you and what their advice is, and talk to the attorney and ask them what your risk is of not doing it. We all self-insure risk. Some people will drive from here 3 blocks away without a seatbelt. We all self-insure some of our risk, and that's just another type of thing that's like where you want to spend your money at, or do you want to self-insure?
So I had somebody ask, so given the market situation right now, everybody's offering, crazy offers, way over asking. For someone looking to purchase their first house hack, constantly getting discouraged because they're underwriting properties at X, constantly getting outbid, all these things off the MLS. What would you suggest to them to, I guess, maybe another sort of pathway they can use to possibly find their first deal? Would you encourage them to look at the other avenues outside the MLS for their first deal? Would you encourage them to reach out to wholesalers to reach out to the deal? I guess what would you advise?
I'll say something that I'll do, but I think as far as what we were talking about earlier, you're going to buy a house hack, you have an expectation of what you're going to pay or what your return is going to be or how much you're going to actually have out of pocket. I think understanding what you're in this market right now, what your max comfort level is, like, all right, I'm okay with this type of loan amount, or okay if the expense is out of my pocket, like understanding where that's going to be, considering everything going on when you're making an offer. That way you can at least be, you're ready to go up that 30 grand because that still falls within your threshold, even though that 30 grand, you might not have been planning for this. So make sure that you understand kind of what your worst, best case scenario is.
So you're thinking in terms of like, I'm okay paying, $800 a month still out of pocket on house hack because I still understand that there's other wealth generation.
Yes, exactly. And you don't have to offer based on that. Right. When that highest best yesterday at 4, you at least know that, I was already mentally prepared to not have as good deals with that.
So I like this question a lot. This is gonna be like tough words for a lot of people here, but you need to invest in marketing. You're going to continue to get your ass kicked on the MLS in this environment unless you invest in some sort of marketing. Like that's the situation we're in. And unless you're living paycheck to paycheck, you should be invested in some sort of marketing, right? Like anyone here own a building they still own from, call it 4 or 5 years ago? Okay, right. So think about this for a second. The people who like raise their hand, how much equity do you have in that building? 6 figures? 200, 300 grand, something like that. That is what is on the table. So when you tell me you can't spend 2 grand to go find that, I stick up my middle finger at you and say, well, you're not serious. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but like, that's reality. Like, we're all sitting here and we're all saying, oh, I can't find a deal, can't find a deal. What are you doing about it? Right? Like, and maybe you go flounder and maybe you go screw it up and, it doesn't work. But at the end of the day, like, if you're not willing to put a little bit of skin in the game, you got to go do it. And I don't sell any marketing products. Like, I have nothing to sell here, but like, you should be doing SEO or direct mail or making calls yourself. Like, otherwise you will be in this same situation and maybe you'll get lucky, but you will be in this situation 6 months from now. I can promise you that, right? Like, you need to get with an agent who knows what they're doing, and then you need to take matters in your own hand as well and try that. And if it fails, you can at least reiterate off of it. But like, every deal you do, there's 6 figures on the table for you. Like, we have some perspective on just how valuable that is to get that deal. So like, this comes across as harsh, but like, it's probably the one thing I want to get across here, because everywhere I go, everyone's asking, how are we getting deals? How are you doing deals? And we invest money, right? And then we get a very good return on the money we invest, even though we don't know what the hell we're doing, because no one else is doing it.
So I love it. I love the passion too. You have done it a couple different ways. You've hired somebody virtual, like a virtual assistant offline. You've gone and done the digging of properties because you're targeting a specific area. You've also teamed up with other wholesalers that are really good and maybe threw in some of their budget to do it. Kind of talk to them about kind of high level, a couple different avenues. I'm sure out there everyone's like, so.
I think the biggest advice, so get on every single wholesaler list, right? Just get those feeds across. Deal with an agent that knows what they're doing, right? You've had them on our podcast. You know who they are. There's some in this room here. Get with, so you can start seeing things on TAN, you can start seeing things on Private Listing Network. But then if you want to take it to the next level, start doing, whether it be direct mail or hook up with someone who does SEO. There's a million of companies that offer these sort of services, right? Or do it yourself. If you don't have the money and you have the time, write the handwritten notes. One of our best lead sources, when we do a flip, we do handwritten notes to everyone on the block. That's been one of our best lead sources for it. And we don't have time for that. We still do it, right? Like, there's a lot of excuses to be made.
But that leads you to get more deal flow and helps you grow.
There it is. Like, I don't know. I'm just gonna keep ranting, so I'll shut up. But like, if you're serious about this, like, you have to have that self-reflection. Like, all right, I gotta take this. And then when it doesn't work for 3 months, don't give up. Keep going or pivot or figure out something, but do something to try to generate leads, because they're not magically going to just fall into your lap. It's not going to happen.
I've watched people that start the marketing piece, and they might just target or might do the handwritten notes in certain areas, certain blocks, maybe send out some mailers, maybe just walk the streets. And they found deals that not necessarily were the 2 or 3 flat for them to live in, but it was a 4 or 6 flat that they called their buddy up and they bought it separately in different terms. Like, you're out there. I think the one thing is, people like to get lucky, right? I think you create your own luck. That when you're out there doing those type of activities, you're finding opportunity and you're creating different scenarios that will benefit you, your buddies, your partnership, or hell, listen. You find a good deal somewhere, someone will pay you $5 grand for it. So you can make up for your marketing. That's your marketing budget for you.
And for those of us who are subscribed to our YouTube channel, Tom actually touched base on this when we first spoke on our channel back in 2020. So check our YouTube. Tom goes over it a little bit before his presentation.
What's his passion at that day?
Did I say the same things or complete opposite? So the question was about tools like PropStream and data scrubbing, finding, and so forth. So I feel I'm rather strong on like the data scrubbing side. I'm probably poor on the actual like sending out the execution of a campaign. I really outsource that, and I'm pretty bad at it. But again, you do it enough times, you'll get lucky. For the data scrubbing, I think the first thing to do is just understand it yourself. So if you want to do driving for dollars, whatever it is, or just go up and down a block, type in the address. It's the Cook County Recorder site, ccrecorder.org. You can go on there, take any pin, take any address, you'll find out the homeowner. You do true people search to find out, okay, that's their phone number, that's their address. These are all free services. Like right there, you can have a list of 100 people you want to call yourself, right? And you'll have their mailing address. You can look up the property tax, where the property taxes get sent, right? So like just those 3 sites right there, you kind of have all the information you need, right? And then if you wanted, you find this person on LinkedIn and send them a message as well. You probably find their email address one way or another with 3 Google searches. Like whether you like it or not, all our info's out there. And so like, I think that's where I would start before I made an investment. Step 1, like I would actually maybe do like find 50 properties you want to look at and just do a little Google sheet yourself of, okay, am I getting the hang of this? Is this the person? And then look into like a PropStream or a title search or one of those type of things where you're actually going to pay for the service and see how accurate it is, right? Because now you kind of have a little bit of a data point of like, well, I can just give most of this information myself. I can hire a VA for $8 an hour to scrub hundreds of properties, right? I've done that a lot more manually than hiring an actual service on the data scrubbing side. And then for sending it out, you can use Vistaprint for postcards. You can hire VAs to make calls. Like there's a lot of different ways there. So I don't have like some technology I'm in love with. I will say just for keeping it all together, I use Podio because it's $9 a month. It's insanely cheap. It's a CRM. You can do outbound out of it. It's nothing super sexy. Like in your real jobs, if you're used to Salesforce, it's nothing like that, but it's good enough. Puts everything in one place. You can do reminders. It's for what we're looking to do. It gets the job done.
Any other questions here?
So we talked about the time management. How do you guys manage like the money? I just bought my second building and I'm still working. And how do you keep it all separate, between, I can take money out of here and I've got separate bank accounts for each building I own, but I also have my own bank accounts. How do you manage all that as you start to scale?
I'm pretty sloppy. No, separate bank accounts. I like looking at things on a quarterly basis. Like what is just run that analysis of like, all right, are we tracking what we perform here? I don't ever really take distribution. I just let the cash flow sit there and reinvest in the property or whatnot. When you own something for 10, 15 years, yeah, different story. I think those first couple I let it sit there and either reinvest it or if I need it for a rainy day, whatever it may be.
I think a lot of people, they buy 2, 3, 4 properties and they might just own it in their personal name or they own one LLC or whatever, but they do extra work. And I say this because I did myself early on, but if you have just one bank account per entity, then you should have some sort of software that is going to ultimately break up that money and how it goes. I see a lot of people just operate right on QuickBooks as well too on mine. But keeping that all together, I think makes it easier on the banking side of things and just having the right software that's going to help you break that down. Did we answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I get nervous there. Sure. He's looking at me like I didn't answer his question.
All right. Yes, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you. Smash that subscribe button. No, help us out. Like you said at the beginning, our motivation for continuing to do the podcast and bring awesome guests on. We have a couple of good guests coming up. What's the name for Bigger Pockets? Jay Scott's coming up here soon. So we got still working on getting Sam Zell or somebody from their thing, but we'll get somebody. But yeah, refer to a friend, share with your groups when you see us posting out. Just hit like or hit the share button and put it on yours and let your friends see it. And we definitely appreciate you spreading the word. No final words, Sean.
Everybody.
All right, guys, thank you everybody for coming. For those of you who are online, we're gonna go ahead and put you to breakout rooms and we'll go ahead and start our open networking. So go ahead and keep your beers full and see you again later this month.
Yeah.
That's it.